and then we'll be taking lunch. So up next, I have Chris Gildea. Did I say the name correctly? Gildea?
Yes, sir.
Who is the VP of Sales for North America of Wheaton Industries.
Yes, sir.
And if you could just give us a quick walkthrough of, you guys are, it sounds like biopharm, I believe?
Slightly. We're really focused on pharmaceutical glassware. So we manufacture glassware used in drug packaging and drug delivery aspects as well.
Fantastic. And your role there, VP of Sales, obviously your fingers are in a lot of pots. What are some of the things you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis?
Yes. So effectively, we manage the entire selling organization, everything commercial, customer service, technical service, all of the sales folks in the field, as well as internal sales folks as well. But also focus on our data analytics. We have a BI group that I manage that we make sure that we look at everything from A to Z in terms of where our sales went out the door and what we need to do to maintain those and keep them going for many years to come.
Cool. Yeah. And how do you guys use Tableau internally, and how long have you been a Tableau user?
So we launched Tableau online in 2014.
Got it.
We were initially started with about 4 or 5 dashboards. We call us virgin users, and we were really just trying to get our feet wet, understand how we could use it for our business. But when we considered the applications of data that we had never used before, we said, what if I could put this in the cloud and show the entire selling organization where they stand versus their quota, where they stand versus their monthly quota, their daily quota, where their pipeline is. There's just so many options. So we have an office that's filled with whiteboards. We started just putting things up there, ideas, what we could have dashboards that could tell us about our business, and we really focused on sales to start.
Got it.
Then we expanded into marketing as well and said, okay, what about lead management? So we have this CRM system that we weren't really fully utilizing. And we asked ourselves, how better to use this thing that I'm paying for rather than just a glorified Rolodex. We took the extracts out of that existing CRM, which was Sales Logics, and we're able to use Tableau to really digest some of the data and put it in a visualization to better understand where we stood. A couple months later, we moved over to Salesforce, and that just exploded. There was this unbelievable opportunity to look at the data that you had in your CRM and then decide what you could do with it by making business decisions. And I mentioned we got cross-functional. So instead of sales and marketing, Tableau could reach into operations as well. So we could use pipeline data to show our operations group where we needed to focus on our builds and where we had to do more production on what type of products and when we needed to deliver that by. So it was quite a powerful tool for us.
Very cool. Yeah. And you mentioned it coming through the sales department originally, then marketing picked it up, and then other groups started. What was the? How did that evolution take place? Did somebody see a report somebody made and said, we want to take advantage of that, and that was how it happened? Or
I would say that so we have a BI leader, so a business intelligence leader that looks at things and says, I have this data set, I'm extracting out of SAP, I'm pulling it out of Google Analytics, what do I want to do with it? So we would start asking other functions, what can we do to help you guys to better visualize your data and better understand where your business, that part of the business sits? And then you see our dashboards, and we started using a lot of fancy colors, and we started looking at things in a couple different ways, and I would say they got jealous. Yeah, so it was fantastic.
Very cool.
I mean, jealousy is the best way to drive a function towards asking if they can use it as well.
Very cool.
And they jumped on board pretty quickly.
Awesome. Yeah. There was a great quote yesterday in the keynote. I forget who it was. I think it was David Story said one of the customers, or I might have been one of the developers, said that one of their customers said what they love about the product is that it allows them to be creative, even though they're not, what they would classify themselves as a creative person.
Right.
Do you have some examples of people in your organization that maybe got their fingers wet in the tool, and all of a sudden, ideas start flying out of their head because they're seeing the company in a different way, rather than just with their blinders on, looking at what they're
for sure.
Down in the weeds?
We have several people that were very much obsessed with tables in Excel.
Yep.
And those are boring. They're extremely boring. And when you look at it from the standpoint of, if I'm going to put this in front of a senior executive or a board of directors, what's the best way that they're going to digest that information? So when you have someone that's in the trenches fighting every day with large amounts of data and trying to tell the business, this is where we need to go, you need the senior executives to look at that very quickly and make a decision.
Yep.
So they had tables, and senior executives look at tables and they just yawn and say, that's great. There's a lot of numbers on a page.
Don't get it.
When we put something in a Tableau dashboard, we can really, really focus in on what the board of directors wants to see.
Sure.
Or what the CEO or the CFO want to see. So you took that person that was, I would say, creative mindset from a data standpoint. They knew what they needed to see and what they wanted to find. They asked the right questions, but they didn't know how a senior executive thought.
I see.
They're young in their career. They weren't saying the things that they need to see. And we were able to produce that, even for someone like myself. If I see a dashboard and I say, he's not going to understand that, being the CEO, it's not that he won't understand it, It's just that in the 30 seconds you have him, he's not going to be able to digest it. Right? So he needs to be able to see it, flash it, decide on it, and then move on to the next meeting. And that's what we're able to do with our data.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And something else, a reoccurring theme I've heard in pretty much every interview is folks say they love to be able to sit down with folks and give them a report. And like you said, a lot of times humans, we think we communicate really well, but sometimes I say one thing and you hear something else, and I'm not the best speaker, and that person's not the best listener, and so on and so forth. They see what they love about it is being able to sit down with a desktop or a tablet and say, oh, that's not the answer you wanted. Let me rework the data a little bit. Do you guys find yourself with that? Taking tablets into meetings with the executives and sort of answering questions on the fly as they throw new things at you?
This was probably the most exciting thing for me. So I came from a very large organization, so I was used to walking into meetings with senior executives and having a whole litany of the what if questions. They might ask me this, so I need to know that.
All
they
that
might
time
ask
it
me
took you to
this.
prep those.
All this time. So days, sometimes weeks trying to get ready for an executive committee meeting. Wheaton is a much smaller organization, so I've been there for about 2.5 years. And we employ a large set of individuals in the South Jersey area, and we've done things the same way for a very long time. Wheaton is a 120-year-old company, a little greater than 120 years, and we've always made glassware for many different applications. It was a family-owned business originally, and now that we've moved into private equity in the 2006 realm, we decided that you need to have a future. So the company's been around for 120 years. What are you going to do to stay around for another 120 years?
Sure.
So when you start coming into meetings with, I'm going to answer all these questions about what happened in the past, and I know what they might ask, so I can predict that. It's not exactly the best framework for moving an organization forward. So they ask a question in a board meeting, and we would say, here's your answer. But if I have that tablet, which we do, and I have my phone, and I have the cloud, so I can change the data when I need to change it, which I don't do very often because I don't want to mess it up on my business intelligence guys. But I can change that view very quickly on the fly to say, this is the question you asked, but really what we're looking at is this question, because this is going to give us 10-year run, 15-year run on something else. So you're asking, I can answer what happened in the past, but I'm also framing the question in future thought as well.
Fantastic. Do you find your hierarchy starting to flatten? You said it's a 120-year-old company, and I'd suppose had very deep management layers. Do you find that there's more access for individuals to get in touch with executives and decision makers and push ideas through faster?
Completely open door policy. So the entire senior executive team is found often wandering through the halls and looking for information, because we're very customer focused at this point. So the glassware industry was very focused on manufacturing a lot of glass and then telling customers, here's what we have, this is the size, do you need it? And in the changing dynamic in today's day and age, it's more of an ad hoc delivery. Customer tells you what you're supposed to have. And our senior executives are really starting to feel like they get to know what the customers are actually asking for by interacting with the employees. So there's a lot of things that we have to fix. We always ask ourselves, what are we doing well? What do we have to do but we could do better? And what should we just stop doing altogether? Those three questions kind of emanate throughout the organization, and people always have an answer for what we're doing wrong and what we should stop doing. But now they have a bit of a condition to say, what are we doing that we have to do, that now I have data to understand what it is that we're doing that I could do better. So we have a lot of, I wouldn't call it flattening in terms of the hierarchy, but a lot more conversations about we could do this better.
Cohesion.
We could do this better, absolutely.
Very cool. And what about, because you guys say you actually manufacture glassware, right? You have factories where you actually build these. Have you, or if you haven't, do you anticipate moving more analytics into there to check things like defects and if I don't know, sometimes when a reoccurring problem happens, there's one root cause and it's hard to capture that unless you have the data points. Is there any? Are you guys doing that currently, or do you anticipate using some analytics for that?
The future holds that as an opportunity. We have at this point looked more at a supply chain operational metric. So we manufacture this glassware. We need to understand how fast we can deliver that product and how we have done in the past and how we can make it better. Glassware manufacturing, I don't know if you're familiar with it, it's more of an art than a science.
That's very cool.
The high throughput glassware manufacturing, it's there, but you never really know what you're going to get. It's based on the sand that comes in, the silica composition of the product, and there's different types of glass. Like I said, I've only been there for 2.5 years, and I've learned more about glass than I ever thought even existed in the first place. There's a million different types of glass, and it comes from all over the world. So measuring those things is a bit more difficult. Especially when you're looking at short production runs, small amounts of glassware customized for a specific drug or drug compound, and then large runs to different measurements. So there's certainly an opportunity for that in the future. And we have that in our scope for sure.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
The team, the first adopters of Tableau, what's the process you go through to put that in their hands? Is it something you give them from day one, or do you sort of let them ease into the company and then they get access to it, or
We just hit them with it right away.
Okay.
Yeah, so we built
Sink or swim.
sink or swim effectively, but we don't look at it that way. We're scientists by trade, so
Okay.
when we say this, you sink or swim, it's more of test it and fail. So try it. If it doesn't work for you, ask questions about what we could do better for you. So our BI team is stepped back and said, does that dashboard work for you? Is it showing you the right data? And they were coming back with information. We've gone from our first launch, which was in January 2014, I mentioned about 5-10 dashboards. We're up to about 215 views,
Oh my gosh.
but we limit those views with Tableau Online. So we don't need the server edition. We've found that the online edition works very, very well for us, a smaller company. The users that are fetching data are not necessarily doing any analytics. And what we've tried to do is create a data culture of self-service. So we create the dashboards that they've asked for with the pertinent information, and they fetch it when they need it. So they go to their iPad, they go to their phone, they go from any computer in the world, and they can log in. They get what they need, and then if they can't find it, they just shoot us a quick note on the BI team, and we decide how we're going to restructure that dashboard so it services everybody better. And the amount of questions that come in, they hit the whiteboard, and we look at them and say, how do I structure this differently so I can answer more questions for our selling organization, for our marketing organization, for our operational organization, to make sure that they're working at the most efficient level possible.
Very cool. And you guys it sounds like you use visualization a whole bunch these days.
Yeah.
What did you rely on prior to Tableau, or was that just not part of
No,
what
it
you did?
wasn't part of it.
Wow.
So SAP is a fantastic tool. It's a very large ERP. We're, I would call, stuck with it based on our integration of it, of the SAP platform. But to extract data out of there is always a challenge. So we employ SAP BW, which is the business warehouse, and it is not the most visual of services.
Right,
I'll put it lightly, just in case anybody from SAP is listening. But we get BW data, and we don't sort it. We don't look at it in any way, shape, or form. We just extract raw data, and then we Tableau it and see how it looks. It's easier for us to visualize that way.
Very cool.
Especially with large data sets.
Great. And do you open the data sets up, or do you kind of bucket it so certain folks can see certain things? And how has that? How was that originally when you started using Tableau, and how has that evolved? Have the Tableau capabilities been able to keep up with your needs as far as allowing access to one party versus another?
There's no question. But it's keeping up with the needs, and in many cases, in my mind, surpassing the needs. When we look at who can see what, it's easy to determine that a salesperson doesn't need to see operational data, but they also don't need to see channel data. So they're only selling to one territory through certain customers. We can limit what they see, especially if you log in. Now, my login, I see 215, 225 views, and it's overwhelming for me, and I know what I'm looking for. So the search field has been fantastic. And we tag every dashboard and every workbook. So if I type in a search, I can find exactly what I need, even if I don't know the name of the dashboard. But for a salesperson, they log in, they may only see 10 dashboards. But when they log into that dashboard or dive into that dashboard, they only see their territory, which is even better. Because they can't, I don't want them knowing what their neighbor's doing. I don't want them knowing what's going on in certain areas.
Sure.
But what I want them to see is a separate leader ladder that shows the entire selling organization when they compare to each other, when it comes to profitability and revenue. But I don't want them looking at the details of other territories or other parts of the business.
Right. Saket, when you said the territories, I immediately thought of the example in the developer session yesterday at the keynote where they drug the sales regions. Could definitely see you guys using that. Probably the personal homepages that they were talking about. Were there any, as you were watching the keynote, that you were like jotting down? We got to check this out. We're going to use this.
We love maps. Like, I can't even tell you how many maps we have. It's probably overkill with the amount of maps we have. But when you consider even some of the things that I had to do in a previous life to determine the best way to structure a sales force, so the best go-to-market strategy in terms of geographic coverage, you could use Microsoft MapPoint. I had to sit there and click zip code by zip code and lay out the territories, especially with some of the new tools they had where they dove deeper into Manhattan. That's like a dream for me. When we're looking at Manhattan, there's multiple customers that we service, and there's different parts of the island in general. I can now just click on the ones I want and say, what does that territory look like in terms of revenue if we did this? What if we expanded it to this? What would it do? What if this customer and this customer, one territory, and not just a geographic slice? So I get pretty excited about it because there's just so many options.
Cool.
We can do it. It runs the business. We have the data. We've always had the data. And we have in some cases 50 years worth of data. it was just in a file folder somewhere, or it's just on a server somewhere that no one was accessing. And now it's just the sky's the limit in terms of what we can look at.
Right, and you guys have a lot of fragmentation, a lot of data sources
We do.
across and how has Tableau been able to keep up with that? Keeping you connected to all those and making them all accessible, putting access controls around those?
I would say that we have not had a single problem connecting to a data source at all.
Cool.
We did have some concerns when we first launched Salesforce. We had come to the conference in Seattle in 2014, and some of the feedback we had gotten that connecting to Salesforce was a bear and it was challenging. And when we ended up launching the Salesforce platform, it was cake. It didn't take us any time at all.
Sweet.
So we copied a few of the just templates that Tableau had provided for the Salesforce platform, and now we've just expanded them. So pulling opportunities in, it comes in every night at 2:15 a.m., and at 2:17 a.m. I'm checking it to make sure that we have a lot of stuff in the pipeline. It has not been a problem at all connecting to data sources.
Very cool.
We want to try and get more complex and more detailed data sources. So we're going to start taking some test and fail mentality. Let's try and connect to Google Analytics in a deeper way. Let's try and put some stuff up on Hadoop and see what happens.
Cool. So what does your, and again, if any of this is secret sauce and you can't talk about it, what does your overall data structure look like? Do you have like a big data lake somewhere that you dump everything? Probably you said Hadoop. A lot of folks use it for that. Do you use some cloud sources?
I would say that we put it in a couple different places, but for the way that we collect data, we sell a lot of product through channels. So this is not secretive, this is not proprietary information, but we have a lot of channels to our customers because we sell so many small widgets that they cover a very large life science research community.
Yep.
The channels provide data back to us, but they typically provide it to us, some of the larger ones in an SAP format, some of the mid-sized ones in just a standard Excel document.
They kind of choose it and send it to you.
We get some back in from QuickBooks, Quicken, like these people are running organizations, and I give them the most credit in the world because they're fighting hard, they're entrepreneurs, they're trying to grow their business in the life science realm. Their data kills me. So I look at it, I say, how do I interpret a QuickBooks document? But I effectively aggregate all that into Access. And the Access database connection was super, super easy. And that's become our data warehouse for that type of data. And then we have Business Warehouse for our larger commercial data, and a couple other sources that I could dive into. But
cool. Yeah. And you'd mentioned also, because you guys are a 120-year-old company and you've got at least 50 years of data. Everybody is interested in what's happening today, what's going to happen tomorrow, what happened last week. But I'm sure sometimes you want to do like longer. Windowed analyses of like last 5 years, last 10 years. Has the Tableau product and your vendors been able to keep up with that? Have you guys run into any kinks or?
We have not. So I think I love Tableau. I'll put it this way: it's one of those pieces of software that when we did the original shopping, we looked at a couple different things. And at the end of 2013, probably looked at about 5 different pieces of software, and they all relatively did the same thing. So they all were trying to get people out of Excel and into some sort of visualization.
Sure.
When we landed on Tableau, it was just, even the whole sales process, they gave us access to do our own data. They showed us our data in the visualization that we asked for. Right. They gave us unbelievable support from day one. And I still remember Stephanie and just asking her a question, immediate answer. Asking her another question, immediate answer. Some of the other vendors, they didn't do that.
Yep.
And being in sales and the commercial function, I don't really have patience for salespeople that don't follow up and don't harass me.
Sure.
Right? Ask me the question, I'll answer the question. Give me the value I'm asking for, and let me move forward running the business. After the purchase, same thing. We've run into a few, how do I do this, how do I do that? And the Tableau community has been great, but the Tableau's doctors have been unbelievable.
Cool.
We never once had to ask somebody twice. It's always been more information than we needed, and then scale back exactly what we had to do.
Very, very cool. And as a small company, I'm sure that's really nice to have that great support, but also the community you mentioned as well. Do you guys leverage the forums on the Tableau website and other individuals in the community too?
I can't speak to it too much. I usually just say out loud or draw on my whiteboard what it is that I need to know and what we need to do to move forward. And then I have a great team that goes out and does all that work to get me what I need. Yeah. So I draw it. I visualize what I want to see in terrible drawings on my whiteboards, and then I come back a couple hours later and bam, I have a dashboard. And then I say, I don't like that, I like that, I like this, I don't like that, and they just move everything around, quick data update, and we're good to go. So I'm sure that they use the communities, and if they were sitting next to me, they'd probably say, I use them all the time, or I don't use them, I'm not sure. But I can tell you that I never have to ask for something and not see it within an hour.
Great.
Yep.
And what have you most enjoyed at the conference, or what are you most looking forward to from this point out?
So I like Vegas in general. Yeah.
I'm
So
with you.
That's a bonus right there. But I really enjoyed the developer sessions, seeing those things that are going to be coming in the future.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I was here last year, so when they talked about Project Elastic, I was sitting in the iPad app saying, why can't I find it? Where is it? And now that we have the visible, we're excited to see how we can use that and make our sales force even more effective.
Cool. And have you, I forget, have you delivered sessions or do you?
I have
or
a
is your
session
team-
today at 1:15.
1:15, and what's the topic there?
It's we call hashtag making it rain, so hashtag MIR.
Okay.
It's bringing revenue to an organization, but
Cool.
it's a journey of reinvention for Wheaton Industries.
Fantastic.
All
Chris
right.
Gildea, thank you so
sir.
much.
Appreciate it.
Take care, enjoy the
All
rest of the
right.
conference.
Thank you.